The sun was setting on the rocky plains of Zorth, a planet far from Earth. The ground was red. The air was thin, and the sky glowed with two moons rising together. It was a strange world for any human, but to Rian, this place was now home. Rian had been sent as part of a peace mission from Earth. His job was to learn the ways of the Zorthians and help both worlds work together. The mission was peaceful, but Zorthians had a unique tradition. To gain their respect, one had to pass a trial of strength. The trial was simple in words but hard in reality. You had to face a challenger in the Great Circle, a wide arena made of stone. The winner was the one who could either push the other out of the circle or make them yield. There were no weapons, only raw strength and skill. Rian had not expected to be called to the circle so soon. He had been on Zorth for only 5 days when the loud voice of the village herald announced his name. The crowd gathered quickly, their heavy boots thudding on the hard ground. Standing in the center was his opponent. She was tall, wide-shouldered, and built like a wall of muscle. Her green skin shone under the twin moons. Her name was Vorga, known across the land as the strongest warrior in 3 provinces. Vorga crossed her arms and looked down at Rian. Her eyes were sharp, and her voice was like rolling thunder. "I will defeat you, human. You will see the strength of Zorth," she declared. Rian looked up at her. He was tall for a human, but she was almost a head taller, and her weight was more than double his. The crowd whispered, expecting the fight to end in seconds, but Rian had no fear in his eyes. Instead, he nodded once. "Then let's see what you've got." The arena master raised his hand. The crowd went silent. With a deep voice, he shouted, "Begin." Vorga moved first. Her steps shook the ground as she charged forward. Her hands reached for Rian's shoulders, aiming to lift him and throw him out of the circle. Rian stepped to the side, his boots sliding on the smooth stone. He had trained in grappling back on Earth, and he knew better than to meet force with force against someone so much larger. The crowd roared in surprise when Vorga missed her first grab. She turned fast and came again, this time sweeping her arm to block Rian's path. He ducked low, rolling to her side. His hands caught her belt, and he tried to pull, but it was like trying to move a mountain. Vorga laughed, her deep voice echoing. "You are quick, but speed will not save you forever." Rian backed up, breathing evenly. He studied her movements. Zorthians were powerful, but they relied heavily on straight force. He needed to use that against her. She charged again, heavier and faster. This time Rian did not run. He waited until the last moment and then stepped aside, guiding her with one arm. Her own momentum carried her close to the edge of the circle. The crowd gasped. But Vorga stopped herself with a stomp so hard that dust rose from the ground. She turned and came at him again, even angrier now. Her hands finally caught him by the arms, and Rian felt the raw power in her grip. She lifted him from the ground as if he weighed nothing. The crowd cheered, thinking it was over. But Rian twisted his body midair, hooking one leg round her arm. He shifted his weight, forcing her to lose balance for a moment. When his feet touched the ground again, he pushed off and broke free from her hold. Vorga growled in frustration. This human was not breaking like others had before. "You fight well," she said, almost grudgingly, "but strength will still decide this." Rian shook his head. Strength is more than muscle. The two circled each other. Sweat rolled down Rian's neck, and his arms felt heavy, but his eyes stayed sharp. He remembered something his old coach had told him: big fighters fall harder when they overcome it. He decided to take the risk. Rian moved closer, making it look like he was tired. Vorga saw the opening and lunged, arms wide. Rian bent low, grabbed her wrist, and pulled while stepping back. Her momentum sent her forward, her foot landing half an inch from the edge of the circle. The crowd's voices rose in a wave of excitement. Vorga planted her other foot hard, stopping herself again. She was breathing heavier now, but her grin showed she was enjoying the challenge. "You have spirit, human." "I like that," she said, raising her arms again. The arena master's voice called out. "First round complete. Second round begins." Rian's chest rose and fell with each breath. He had survived the first round, something many thought impossible. But Vorga was still strong and still dangerous. As they prepared for the next round, Rion glanced at the crowd. He saw faces filled with surprise, curiosity, and even a bit of respect. He knew this fight was more than just about winning. It was about proving that humans could stand as equals to the Zorthians. The second round was about to begin, and Rion had no intention of backing down. If you want, I can continue part 2 with the next stage of the fight, building tension and showing how Rion uses both skill and cleverness against Vorga's overwhelming power. The arena master's hand came down, and the second round began. The crowd's cheers echoed between the rocky cliffs, their voices mixing with the sound of boots stamping the ground. The air was tense, filled with the scent of dust and excitement. Vorga stepped forward slowly this time, her eyes locked on Rion. She had seen his tricks in the first round, and she would not be fooled so easily again. Her hands were open, ready to grab, but her stance was wider, her center lower. Rion could see she had adjusted her approach. She was no longer charging without thought. He would have to be even more careful now. The two circled each other in the great circle. Rion's breathing was steady, but his muscles were already feeling the strain. Vorga, in contrast, looked fresh, her massive frame barely showing signs of fatigue. She made the first move, stepping in with a quick feint to the left. Then suddenly reaching from the right, Rion blocked her hand, stepping sideways, but she used the motion to pivot and catch his shirt. Her grip was like steel. Rion tried to twist free, but she pulled him toward her with a single strong yank. Before he could react, her leg hooked behind his, and he was thrown onto the stone floor. The impact knocked the wind from his lungs. The crowd roared in approval at her move. Vorga stood over him, her shadow covering his body. "Yield," she said firmly. Rion coughed, shaking his head. "Not yet." He rolled to the side and pushed himself up. His ribs hurt from the fall, but he forced his body to move. If he gave up now, it would not just be his loss, it would be a sign that humans were weak. Vorga came at him again. Faster this time, Rion sidestepped and ducked low, aiming to grab her ankle. She anticipated it, pulling her leg back and swinging her arm toward his shoulder. The blow knocked him sideways, but he kept his balance. The crowd was now shouting both names, some calling for Vorga, others starting to cheer for the human. Rion's mind worked quickly. He needed to create an opening. Strength against strength would never work, but if he could make her commit to far, he might turn her own force against her. He backed away toward the edge of the circle. Vorga saw this and smiled, thinking he was cornered. She charged him with long strides, her arms wide to block his escape. At the last moment, Rion dropped low, catching her forearm and twisting his body. The motion pulled her forward, and with her own speed added, she stumbled past him. Her foot landed dangerously close to the outer ring. The crowd gasped, a wave of sound rolling over the arena. Vorga managed to stop herself again, but Rion saw it. She was breathing heavier now. The constant movement and sudden burst of power were starting to add up. She turned toward him, her grin still wide. "You are clever, human, but cleverness will not keep you standing forever." Rion straightened. "We will see." They closed. And again, this time, Vorga tried a new tactic. She stayed in the center, making Rion come to her. He could not wait forever. The arena master would call the round if neither acted. He moved in carefully, feinting with his right hand. She reached for it, and he darted to her left side, aiming for her hip. She blocked with surprising speed, spinning to face him. For a moment, they locked grips, her hands on his arms, his hands on her wrists. Her strength pushed him back inch by inch. His boots scraped against the stone, and his muscles burned. Then, without warning, Rion shifted his weight to one side, letting her push through. As she stumbled a half step forward, he dropped to one knee and hooked his shoulder under her arm. Using her own momentum, he tried to lift and tip her toward the edge. For a brief second, it worked. Her massive body shifted, and her balance broke. The crowd roared, sensing the possible end. But Vorga planted her foot hard, bending her knees, and pushing back with a power that almost sent Rion flying. He barely kept his footing, stepping back quickly to avoid her counterattack. The arena master's voice cut through the noise. Round to ends, the crowd erupted in cheers. Both fighters were still standing. Vorga's chest was rising and falling faster now. She looked at Rion with a new expression, not just respect, but something close to excitement. "You have lasted longer than I thought," she said. "Perhaps you are more than a guest here." Rion wiped sweat from his forehead. "And you are stronger than I thought, but strength is not only in size." The arena master raised his voice again. "Final round. Victory must be decided." The noise from the crowd reached a peak. Rion could feel the heat of the twin moons on his back. He took a deep breath and stepped forward. Vorga moved in as well. Her steps slower, but each one heavy with force. There was no more holding back now. She reached for him, and he darted aside, aiming to tire her more. She turned, following his every step, her eyes sharp. Rion saw his chance when she swung her arm wide to block his path. He ducked under, wrapped both arms around her waist, and pushed with every bit of strength he had left. She resisted, her feet digging into the stone, but he kept driving forward, step by step. The edge of the circle was close. The crowd shouting grew louder. Vorga roared and tried to twist free, but her footing slipped on a patch of dust. Rion gave one last push. The round was not over yet, but the fight had reached its peak. Both fighters now knew the next move could decide everything. The arena was silent for a heartbeat, as if the entire crowd had stopped breathing. Rion's arms were locked around Vorga's waist, his boots scraping against the stone. Every muscle in his body burned, but he kept pushing. Vorga's feet slid another inch toward the edge. She roared, her deep voice shaking the air, and twisted her hips to break free. Rion felt the surge of her strength and knew he could not hold her much longer. In a split second, he made a choice. Instead of resisting, he shifted his weight and stepped back, letting her force pull her forward. Her own power carried her ahead, and before she could stop, her foot crossed the outer line of the circle. The arena master's voice rang out like a hammer strike, out of bounds. "The human wins the final round." The crowd exploded into shouts and stomps. Some cheered in disbelief, others in admiration. The great circle had seen many warriors fall, but never had a human defeated a champion like Vorga. Rion stepped back, his chest rising and falling rapidly. His arms felt heavy, and sweat dripped from his forehead, but a faint smile crossed his face. He had done what most thought was impossible. Vorga stood still for a moment, her massive shoulders heaving. Then she turned toward Rion and walked forward. The crowd went quiet again, unsure of what would happen. She stopped in front of him, towering over him as before. Her eyes met his, and for a moment, no words were spoken. Then she extended her hand. "You fought with skill and heart," she said. "You have earned my respect." Rion took her hand. Her grip was still powerful, but this time it was not a threat, it was an acknowledgement. "You fought with honor," he replied. The crowd roared again, this time for both of them. Warriors pounded their chests, and elders nodded in approval. The arena master raised his voice over the noise. "By the laws of Zorth, the victor is given the title of honored challenger. Rion of Earth, you are now welcome in all provinces." Rion felt a weight lift from his shoulders. This victory was more than just personal. It meant Earth's representative had earned a place among the Zorthians. Vorga turned toward the crowd and raised Rion's arm. "Today, a human has stood as an equal. Let all remember this." The cheers grew even louder, echoing across the plains. After the ceremony, Rion and Vorga walked out of the arena together. The cool night air was a relief after the heat of the fight. The twin moons hung high, casting silver light over the land. "You planned that last move, did you not?" Vorga asked as they walked. Rion nodded. "I knew I couldn't overpower you directly. I had to use your strength against you." Vorga gave a deep laugh. "A dangerous tactic, but it worked. You will need such thinking if you wish to survive." Here, they reached the edge of the village, where a large fire burned and tables were set for a feast. The victory had become a celebration. Warriors clapped Rion on the back, and children stared at him with wide eyes. Plates of roasted meat and bowls of grain were passed around. Elder Merrick, the leader of the village, raised a cup. Tonight, we honor Rion of Earth. May the bond between our worlds grow strong. The crowd answered with a cheer. Rion lifted his own cup and returned as the feast went on. Vorga leaned closer. You may have won today, but remember, victory brings new challenges. There are others who will want to test you now. Rion met her gaze. Then I'll be ready. A young warrior approached them. Rion, the traders from the eastern province, have brought news. There is talk of unrest near the border. Some say strange lights have been seen in the sky. Vorga frowned. Strange lights? The young warrior nodded. Not like our ships, faster, brighter, and they vanished without sound. Rion's mind sharpened. He had heard similar reports before back on Earth. These were often signs of unknown visitors. If it was happening here, it might mean trouble for both worlds. Elder Merrick joined them. I will send scouts tomorrow. Rion, I would have you join them. Your eyes see differently than ours. Rion agreed without hesitation. If something is coming, we should know what it is. Vorga grinned. Then it seems a real test begins now. Later that night, as the fire burned low and most of the village slept, Rion stood at the edge of the plains. The wind was cool, carrying the scent of distant mountains. He looked up at the twin moons, their pale light bathing the land. Somewhere out there, beyond the horizon, something was moving. The fight with Vorga had proven he could stand against one of the strongest on Zorth. But whatever was coming might not follow the same rules. He tightened his fists. If he had earned the respect of the Zorthians, then he would use it to face whatever threat lay ahead. This was no longer just about Earth or Zorth, it was about survival for both. Behind him, Vorga's voice broke the silence. Do not stay up till late, human. Tomorrow, we hunt the truth. Rion glanced back and nodded. I'll be ready. The plains stretched out into the distance, and the night sky seemed endless. Somewhere in that vastness, the next challenge waited, and Rion knew he would meet it head-on. Morning came early on Zorth. The light of the twin suns painted the rocky plains in shades of gold and red. Rion woke before the village drums called the start of the day. His body still ached from the fight with Vorga, but his mind was sharp. Today was not a day for rest. By the time the drums sounded, Vorga was already waiting near the gate of the village. She wore light armor, her broad shoulders covered by a single plate of dark metal. A long spear rested in her hand, though she carried it as if it weighed nothing. You are late, she said with a grin. Rion smirked, only by a breath. 3 other Zorthians joined them. There was Brannick, a quiet hunter with eyes that missed nothing. Sola, a tracker whose speed was unmatched. And Torv, a scout known for his skill in reading signs in the earth. Together, they formed a small but capable team. Elder Merrick gave final instructions. The strange lights were seen near the cliffs of Drakvale. Move carefully, if it is a threat. We must know before it reaches our lands. The team set out across the open plains. The ground was dry and cracked in places, with patches of tough grass swaying in the wind. Rion kept pace with the others, his eyes scanning the horizon. He had been trained for reconnaissance back on Earth, but here the terrain was alien, every rock and shadow unfamiliar. Hours passed before they reached the first set of cliffs. From the top, the land stretched out in all directions, broken only by jagged ridges and winding canyons. Sola crouched, pointing to the east. There, she said. Rion followed her gaze. In the far distance, a faint glimmer appeared against the pale sky. It moved quickly, then vanished without a sound. Vorga narrowed her eyes. Too fast for any craft of ours. Brannick said nothing, but his grip tightened on his bow. They moved down into the valley below, following a narrow path between the rocks. The air here was cooler, the shadows deep. Torv stopped and knelt, running his fingers along the dust. Tracks, he said. Rion crouched beside him. The prints were strange 3 long marks, as if from claws, and spaced wider than a human stride. They led deeper into the valley. The group followed the trail in silence. The wind shifted, carrying a faint metallic smell. It was not like the scent of Zorthian forges, it was sharper. Unnatural. They reached a clearing surrounded by high stone walls. In the center, half buried in dust, lay a piece of dark metal. It was smooth and curved, with faint glowing lines across its surface. Rian knelt beside it, brushing away the dirt. "This isn't from here," he said. Vorga tapped it with the butt of her spear. The sound was hollow, but it carried a deep echo. "If it fell from the sky, it is part of whatever lights you saw." Before they could examine it further, Brannock raised his hand for silence. A low hum filled the air, growing louder. The team spread out, weapons ready. From above the cliff edge, a shape rose into view. It was sleek and silver, with no visible wings. Light shimmered along its surface, and it moved without sound except for the faint hum. Sola whispered, "It sees us." The craft hovered for a moment. Then a beam of pale light swept across the clearing. When it passed over the piece of metal, the glow along the fragment's surface brightened. "Back!" Vorga shouted, stepping between the beam and Rian. The light vanished, and the craft shot upward at incredible speed, disappearing into the sky in seconds. The clearing was silent again, but the air felt charged, as if a storm was coming. Rian turned to the others. That wasn't a random sighting. It was looking for something. "Maybe for this." He pointed to the fragment. Tor frowned. "If it wants it, should we take it back to the village?" Vorga shook her head. "If we carry it openly, we invite them to follow us. We hide it and watch." They dug a shallow pit beneath a flat stone and placed the fragment inside. Then they marked the spot with a small pile of rocks. For the rest of the day, the team stayed near the cliffs, watching the sky. Twice more they saw the strange craft, always far away, always moving too quickly to follow. As the suns dipped low, they made camp in a sheltered canyon. The fire was small, its light barely reaching the walls. Rian sat apart from the others, thinking. On Earth, any unknown craft would be treated as a high threat. But here, Zorthians had no records of such machines. That meant this was a first contact, one that might not be friendly. Vorga joined him, sitting with her spear across her knees. "You are quiet, human." "I'm thinking about what we saw," Rian said. "If they're searching for that fragment, they'll come back." She nodded. "Then we will be ready." The night passed without incident, but before dawn, Brannock shook them awake. He pointed toward the sky. Above the cliffs, 3 lights moved in formation, brighter than stars. "They're searching again," Rian said. The team broke camp quickly. Moving in the shadow of the cliffs, they made their way back toward the village. Twice, the lights passed overhead, but the team stayed hidden. By midday, the gates of the village came into view. Elder Merrick met them, his face serious. "You returned sooner than expected." Vorga stepped forward. "We saw the lights, Elder, and more. They are machines, faster than anything we know. We found a piece of one." Murrock's brow furrowed. "Where is it?" "In a safe place," Vorga replied. "If they want it, they will come for it. We should prepare the village." Rian added, "And not just the village. If these visitors are hostile, they won't stop here. We need to warn the other provinces." Merrick looked between them, then nodded slowly. "You will tell the council what you saw. Tonight, as the sun set." Rian stood outside the council hall. The great doors opened, and Vorga stepped out. "They will send word to the other provinces. Tomorrow, we return to the cliffs to watch. This is not over." Rian looked toward the darkening horizon. Somewhere out there, the silent craft were still moving. And soon, they might not just be watching. The next morning, the village was already awake before the sun rose. The air was cool, and the light from the moon still touched the ground. Rian stood at the gate, adjusting the straps of his pack. He had kept his spear close at hand all night, though he doubted it would be enough against the craft they had seen. Vorga joined him, her armor strapped tighter than before. "The council says this is a watch mission, not a fight," she said. "But if they come for the fragment, we will defend it." Brannock, Sola, and Torv arrived a moment later. They all carried extra water and food enough for 2 days in the cliffs, without another word. The 5 of them set out across the plains. The journey was quiet. The team kept to the low ground, using ridges and tall rocks for cover. The wind carried dust across the land, sometimes hiding the horizon. Rian noticed that everyone was more alert than before. Even Sola, usually quick to smile, kept her eyes moving, scanning the sky. By midday, they reached the cliffs of Drakvel. The spot where they had hidden the fragment looked untouched. The pile of stones was just as they had left it. Vorga knelt and brushed away some of the dust. "Still here," she said. Tor set up a small camp nearby, hidden between two large boulders. From there, they could watch the sky without being seen. From above, Rion kept his gaze moving, remembering how quickly the craft had appeared before. Hours passed, the suns began to drop toward the horizon, and the light turned red across the valley. Then Brannick gave a short whistle. "There," he said, pointing west. 3 silver shapes moved against the fading light. They came in fast and silent, their smooth hulls reflecting the last rays of the suns. Rion felt his chest tighten. They were lower than before, moving in a slow, sweeping pattern. "They are searching," Sola whispered. The craft moved over the cliffs, one of them heading straight for the clearing. Rion and Vorga exchanged a glance. If it passed directly over the hidden fragment, it might detect it. "Stay low," Vorga ordered. The first craft slowed as it reached the clearing. A pale beam of light spread across the ground, sweeping back and forth. Rion watched as the beam paused exactly over the stone pile. The glowing lines along the fragment must have reacted again, because the craft stopped moving entirely. Without warning, a narrow column of light shot down, striking the pile. The top stones broke apart, exposing the metal piece. The beam brightened, and the fragment began to rise into the air. "They're taking it," Rion said sharply. Vorga moved without hesitation, sprinting from cover toward the beam. Her spear spun in her hand, and with a fierce throw, she sent it flying. The weapon struck the side of the craft with a sharp crack, making the beam flicker. The fragment dropped back to the ground. The craft reacted instantly. It shifted sideways in the air, and a second beam of light swept across the clearing. The beam caught Vorga, lifting her slightly before she slammed her feet into the ground and broke free. Rion dashed forward, grabbing the fragment before the beam could reach it again. The metal was warm, and faint vibrations pulsed through it. Like a heartbeat, he turned and ran for cover, Brannick firing arrows toward the craft not to damage it, but to distract it. The second and third craft were closing in now. Their beams swept across the rocks, searching. Sola grabbed Rion's arm and pulled him behind a large boulder just as one beam passed. Where he had been standing. "They want this badly," Rion said. Holding the fragment tight, Vorga rejoined them, breathing hard. "We cannot fight them in the open. We need to move into the canyons." Torv nodded. "Narrow walls will make it harder for them to follow." The team began moving quickly toward the eastern side of the cliffs. The craft followed overhead, their beams cutting through the dust twice. They had to stop and hide as the beams swept close each time. Rion felt the fragment's vibrations grow stronger, as if it knew the craft were near. They reached the mouth of a canyon just as the suns dipped below the horizon. The tall rock walls cast deep shadows, and the sound of the craft's humming grew fainter. Once they were deeper inside, Vorga raised her hand for them to stop. "We will rest here for a moment," she said. Rion sat on a flat rock, still holding the fragment. This isn't just a piece of metal. It's reacting to them. It might even be calling to them. Brannick's eyes narrowed. "Then we should destroy it." "No," Rion said quickly. "If it's important enough for them to risk being seen, it might tell us who they are and what they want," Vorga agreed. "We will keep it hidden until we can study it. But first, we must lose them." The team moved again, this time staying in the deepest parts of the canyon. The silver shapes passed overhead once more, but their beams did not reach the floor below. Eventually, the hum faded completely into the distance. They made camp in a small cave for the night. The fire was small, just enough for warmth. Rion placed the fragment on the ground between them. Its faint glow lit the walls of the cave. Sola leaned closer. "It is beautiful, but I do not trust it." "Neither do I," Rion said, "but it might be the only way to understand what we're dealing with." Vorga rested her spear against the wall. "Tomorrow, we take it back to the village. The council will decide how to guard it. If these sky visitors return, We will be ready." As the others settled into rest, Ryun stayed awake, watching the glow of the fragment. He had a feeling that the silent craft would not give up so easily. Somewhere above the canyon walls, in the vast, dark sky, they were probably already planning their next move, and when they came, he would be ready to meet them. The sun of Zorth hung low in the sky, painting the vast metal plains in shades of gold and copper. The wind carried the faint hum of the energy fields buried beneath the ground, a sound that always made Ren uneasy. In the distance, massive towers shimmered like mirrors, reflecting the last light of day. This was the battlefield that had been chosen. Taro stood at the edge of the plain, his eyes fixed on the figure across from him. The alien girl, Vetra, was already there, her massive frame casting a long shadow. She wore her traditional battle armor, its plates thick and dark, with glowing lines of power running across her arms. Her stance was wide, steady, like the ground itself. Ren stood beside Taro, his voice low. "This is where you settle it. No tricks, no escape. Just you and her." Taro nodded. "I know." His voice was calm, but his hands were tight at his sides. He could feel the pressure in the air. This wasn't just about proving his own strength. If he lost, the humans who had joined the Alliance would lose their place in Zorth's council. Vetra's deep voice carried across the plains. "Human, today we end this. You say you are equal to us. Prove it." She slammed her right fist against her chest, the sound echoing like a drum. Taro took a slow step forward. "I will. But strength is not just in the body, Vetra. It is in the will." The first strike came fast. Vetra's heavy arm swung forward like a battering ram, and Taro barely dodged. The ground cracked where her fist landed. He countered with a quick blow to her side, but her armor absorbed most of the impact. She smiled faintly, like she was amused by his attempt. They circled each other. The crowd of Zorthians and humans watching from a safe distance grew silent. Every movement was measured. Every step left a mark on the dusty metal ground. Vetra charged again, faster this time. Taro ducked under her swing and rolled to her back, striking at the joints of her armor. The blows made her stumble, but she recovered quickly and sent a powerful kick his way. The impact sent him sliding across the ground, but he managed to stay on his feet. "Not bad," she said, her voice steady. "But you still cannot match my weight and power." Taro breathed heavily, but kept his eyes on her. "Then I won't fight your way." Instead of trading heavy blows, he began to move in closer, slipping past her reach, striking weak spots, and forcing her to turn again and again. Each hit was small, but they added up. He was not trying to overpower her. He was wearing her down. The fight went on, the air growing hotter as the energy fields under the ground reacted to their movements. Sparks jumped from the cracked surface. Where their strikes landed, Vetra's breathing grew louder. Her steps became heavier. Taro's arms ached, his lungs burned, but he did not slow. Finally, Vetra made a mistake. She swung too wide, and her foot caught on the edge of a cracked panel in the ground. In that moment, Taro struck hard at the joint in her left knee. The armor dented under the blow, and she dropped to one knee. The crowd gasped. Taro stepped back, giving her space to rise. "Stand, Vetra. I will not strike you while you are down." She looked at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she stood, slow but steady. "You fight with honor, and you fight with skill. I see now why your people follow you." They clashed once more, but this time it was slower, more deliberate. Taro landed a final strike to her shoulder, forcing her back a few steps. She dropped her weapon to the ground and raised her hand. "I yield," she said, her voice carrying across the plains. The crowd erupted in shouts. Some cheered for Taro. Others stood in respectful silence. Ren stepped forward with a smile. "You did it." Taro looked at Vetra, who was breathing heavily, but standing tall. "No, we did it. Because you accepted to face me here, we have proved something greater than strength." Vetra gave a short nod. "Perhaps humans are not as fragile as I believed." The sun dipped below the horizon, and the metal plains began to glow faintly. In the darkness, the duel was over, but the true challenge, the unity between their people, was just beginning. The arena was silent, but the air felt heavy. All eyes were on Rian and Zara. This was not just a match anymore. It was the end of a story that started with rivalry but grew into something far greater. Rian stood, with his back straight, his eyes fixed on the towering alien girl in front of him. Zara, the 330-pound warrior from Kargas, had fought many battles, but this was the first time she felt her heart race for a reason beyond the fight itself. She respected Rian. That respect made the coming clash even more important. The rules were clear. This was the final round. No weapons, only skill, strength, and the will to win. "Are you ready, human?" Zara asked, her deep voice carrying across the arena. "I'm ready," Rian replied, calm but focused. The signal was given. Zara charged forward, her massive frame shaking the ground. The crowd roared. But Rian kept his eyes on her, reading her movement. She swung her arm in a wide arc, aiming to knock him off balance. Rian ducked under it and rolled to the side, his mind already working on his next move. She turned fast for her size and came at him again. This time Rian didn't dodge completely. He stepped in, letting her momentum carry her forward, then used his smaller frame to twist and pull her arm. It was a move based on leverage, not power. Zara stumbled slightly but recovered in an instant. "You won't beat me with tricks," she growled. "It's not tricks," Rian said, stepping back into position. "It's timing." They circled each other. The crowd watched in silence now, realizing they were witnessing more than just brute strength. Zara attacked again, faster this time. Rian blocked, pushed, and moved in quick bursts every time she thought she had him trapped. He slipped away. Every time he struck, he aimed at her balance, not her body. She realized he wasn't trying to hurt her. He was trying to outthink her. It made her fight harder. Minutes passed. Sweat rolled down Rian's face. Zara's heavy breathing echoed in the arena. Both fighters knew they were close to their limits. Then it happened. Zara lunged forward with all her strength, aiming to grab Rian and end it in one move. Rian sidestepped. At the last second, hooked his arm under hers, and used her own speed against her. With a loud crash, Zara landed on her back. The ground shook. Rian didn't attack. He stepped back, waiting as Zara lay still for a moment, breathing hard, then pushed herself up. She looked at him with a faint smile. "You had me," she said, her voice calm now. Rian nodded. It was a good fight. The judges stepped forward. The match was over. By the rules, Rian had won. The human crowd cheered, but something strange happened. The Kargas warriors, Zara's people, also cheered. Zara raised Rian's hand. "This human fought with honor," she said loudly. "Strength is not just in muscle. It is in the mind and heart." Today, he showed both. The cheers grew louder. Even those who doubted humans before now looked at Rian with respect. Later, when the arena was empty, Zara and Rian sat side by side, sharing water. "You fought well," Rian said. "You fought better," Zara replied, but there was no anger in her tone. "I think I learned something today." "What's that?" "That sometimes winning is not just about victory," she said. "It's about who you become after the fight." Rian smiled. "Then I guess we both won." They sat in silence, not as enemies, but as warriors who had tested each other and found friendship in the clash. The stars above the arena shone brightly, as if the galaxy itself approved of the strange bond between a human and an alien giant. The war of pride between species was over for them. What remained was mutual respect, and in the grand story of humans among the stars, that respect was worth more than any single battle.